Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Better Workdays. I'm your host, Andy Morrison from Real Custom Training, and this is the podcast where you get some free, fast, and actionable advice on how to use leadership skills to create better workdays for yourself and for other people. Now, here's the best part of that. Let's say you only want to create a better workday for yourself. Well, when you do that, I bet you will find that as a result, you end up creating better workdays for people around you. And if you decide you just want to focus on people around you and build better workdays for them, I bet you will also find you end up having some better workdays as a result as well. There's a reciprocal nature to this stuff. Even if you think you're just working on yourself, the more you're working on yourself, the better able you're going to be to lead and influence other people around you and vice versa. And today we've got a great guest with a great tool that is going to highlight this for us, this idea that working on yourself enables you to help work better with other people and vice versa. So I'm going to bring in returning guest and fellow instructor at Real Custom Training, Heather Butterworth is our guest today. And Heather is going to talk to us about one of her favorite tools that she uses in her workshops. And it's something called the cognitive crown. And what I like sometimes is Heather will run a workshop in our training room. And when I come in the next day and I see all the flip charts and all the work that everybody did in the workshop up there, I love it when there's something on there that I'm not that familiar with. And I'll say, Heather, you got to teach that to me. And the cognitive crown is one of those things. So I invited Heather onto the podcast, and she's going to give us the lay of the land on the cognitive crown, why it's relevant, and how it can be helpful in creating better workdays. So join me in welcoming Heather Butterworth back to Better Workdays. Hey, Heather, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So we're talking about the cognitive crown today, which I know is one of your favorite tools in the toolbox.
It is. It changed my life, honestly, when I kind of stumbled onto it. And I think I wasn't using it in a workplace setting at first. And then I started kind of dabbling it into my workplace. And I was like, this is just something that I think everyone needs to know about. So it's probably one of my favorite tools to talk about.
So tell me a little bit about how it impacted you personally. What in a broad sense, before we look at the tool, what kind of issues did it help you work on and improve?
Well, I think firstly, communication and relationships, right? Like started to realize that at times in my life, and I'm sure everyone else has been in the same situation, you start to think about the ways that people are doing you wrong, all the ways that they, don't communicate well with you or don't want to work with you or, whatever it might be. And I started realizing, all of my sentences were starting with the same 4-letter word, and it was they. Always what they were do, or always the way that they do things, or the way they interact with me. And it just came at a time where I was like, wait a minute, I can have a little bit of control here about, the way my workday looks if I take a little bit more accountability. So when I found this, I was like, it's never kind of too late to change the way that you interact with people around you, and that you do have the power to change more than you think you do.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So kind of that helped shift into more proactive thinking.
Yes.
Less,
and I think, yeah, of course. And like growth mindsets are number one, we start with that with every leadership workshop. And I feel like this just pairs so beautifully with it, because we can talk about all the great ways to be a leader, but until you start to understand what your part falls into it and the way that you kind of hold yourself in the workplace, you really can't get past anything else.
Yeah. So let's put the model up there, Heather.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it before, but this is also going to be educational for me, because we talked about this once before, and then I messed up from a technical perspective and we lost everything. So what I did then was I forced myself to forget everything you taught me that day so that I could be nice and fresh for this endeavor. So here's the tool that I have walked into the training room and seen up on the wall before, or, on a flip chart or up on the whiteboard. And it immediately caught my eye because, I love a good model and framework, because it's,
yes.
I'm a bit of an abstract thinker, and I love these things because they help take really abstract stuff, like, what you're thinking, what's going on in your head, and put it into a tangible model that can help you kind of, wrap your hands around it and understand it, and then do something with it.
Yeah. It's just nice to have a visual on something that I think that we all think about. And I think that we all know this in our head, but until you see it laid out in a place like this, all of those things can finally connect. So my kind of thought process with this is based off cognitive behavioral therapy. I learned it the first time I was in therapy, and I'm sure that anyone who's ever taken any has probably discovered also. But that model is based on the fact that you have thoughts about things that are going to turn into feelings about things that can directly drive your behavior. So I started kind of thinking about that and thought there's a little bit more to this, I think. And if I can lay it out this way, particularly in a crown shape that sits on your head, that every single day as you get ready, you can put that cognitive crown on, just like you would put on your pants or your shirt. You put that on and you start your workday like that. So, I mean, first, of course, the starting point is going to be the center of the crown where it says action. So this is basically something has happened, and then it's going to spark a thought that you have. That thought is going to grow into an emotion, and that emotion is going to kind of boil and elicit a response from you. That response over time to that emotion is going to become a behavior. And I think before we can start to think about how we work with others in the workdays, we have to understand that our thoughts are going to ultimately lead to the behavior that we have around other people. But what's really kind of crazy about this is as I started kind of thinking about it that way, I was like, yeah, this is really good self-awareness stuff. This is good. But then all of a sudden, I sat there and I was like, well, wait a minute, my behavior also provokes action in somebody else. So then it became more of this like secular model. So, if we take this from like a real life setting, somebody gets a promotion in my department, and that's the action. It
Okay,
sparks
that's
a
the
thought
action.
in me. Yeah, it sparks a thought in me where maybe I say like, yeah, wouldn't chosen that person. Okay, so now I have that thought. That thought's going to grow into an emotion, and that emotion very well might be, maybe I'm resentful. Maybe I thought I was a good candidate for that promotion. Okay. And then suddenly that emotion is going to build in me, and my response is going to be, yeah, no, I don't think that person has what it takes. And now that eventually is going to become a behavior, and that any dealings that I have with that person, I'm going to be resentful for, and I'm going to be doubtful about their capacities and being able to do it. So once I start showing that behavior to that particular person, that also provokes an action from their standpoint. Why is she talking to me this way? Now she's going to have a thought about me, build an emotion about me, form a response and a behavior. And this cycle just continuously perpetuates. And I think it is just a good self-awareness tool in general. I think that we always talk about how, we can't change others. And I know that we all know that, but 50% of the relationship is what you bring to the table. And I think that we don't do enough hard work there on an everyday basis at work.
And it's interesting the promotion analogy or scenario.
Yeah.
Because what I like about it is it kind of requires you to be open to being wrong.
Oh God, yeah.
about what you feel, and that can be a challenging idea when you first get introduced to it, because a lot of in our culture it's trust your gut, things like that, and stand up for yourself, set boundaries, and all of that's good, but initially you do have to be open to the idea that I don't know who coined this phrase, but I know it's a popular one now, that like your basically your feelings can be wrong. Your feelings are not necessarily the truth, but we tend to really get stuck in the idea that no, if I feel this way, therefore it must be true.
Right. It's your own truth, right?
Yeah.
And it's so easy for us to validate our own truths, which is something else entirely. But what's funny is I recently did an emotional intelligence workshop with us, and we were talking about emotions, and it's the fluffy part of the workday, right? A lot of people, I would say a good healthy amount of people think that emotions don't have a place in the workplace. And you're not human if you don't have them. I mean, we're one of the only species that has thought process and emotion like that can alter our behavior. And I think for you to go into a workplace and think that emotions don't live there is you're really doing everyone around you like a giant injustice. But what was impressive about that, and like you were kind of just mentioning, when it comes to emotions, I think that we don't give ourselves enough time to process an emotion. It's that first gut feeling that comes up, but a lot of times our emotions are really misplaced and they're not in the right spot. So like initially in that promotion scenario, my emotion might be like, oh, like I'm aggravated, I'm frustrated that I didn't get that job. But really if I sat with that anger more, I would realize, maybe it's shame that everyone knew that I went out for this promotion and then I didn't get it. And now I'm
Mm-hmm.
embarrassed that I didn't get it. We don't sit in that enough. So what was interesting is in that particular class, I of course bring up the cognitive crown, and we tried to define some very basic big emotions without using other emotions to define them. And we couldn't do it. It was really hard. And so it was a good example in how not being aware of the full scope of your emotions really kind of pigeonholes you in place where maybe I'm not actually angry. Maybe I'm embarrassed, and if I'm not understanding that emotion better, then my response is going to be out of whack too, which means my behavior is going to be out of whack as well.
Yeah, it's I'm angry because employees aren't listening to me. Well, what's behind the anger? There's usually going to be other emotions driving it, and other causes. And it might be, well, I'm angry employees aren't listening to me. And, my bigger issue is maybe I have some insecurity about my authority level. And maybe that's that insecurity is what's really causing me to lash out when I don't get listened to. So maybe I need to work on that better so that I'm not lashing out unnecessarily at my folks.
100%. 100%. And with the position that we're in, we listen to people talk about their work days all day long. And so frequently it's what's been done to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And when you start to kind of push the envelope and be like, well, what's your part in that? It's really hard for them to be honest with themselves and give one. So, I mean, we had a great comment a couple of weeks ago. You were there for that. And someone was like, I feel like I like coming to this workshop, but it feels like therapy too. We were like, good, it should.
Yeah. Yep. I hear that a lot. That's one of the most frequent pieces of informal feedback. People will crack that joke of, God, this sometimes feels like therapy. And I think, part of the challenge for us too is knowing, obviously we're not therapists. We're familiar with therapy. But it's all about behavioral change.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of natural overlap. There's a lot of natural overlap between what we teach, and therapy, trauma recovery, addiction recovery. There's, anything that's dealing with human behavior and seeking out a lasting change in behavior. Of course, it's going to be a lot of overlap on that graph. And sometimes the trick too is, knowing when, not that I tell people, hey, you should go to therapy, but part of it is sometimes there's going to be things people might have that they might need that professional therapeutic intervention, or the problem employee or problem boss they're dealing with at work might need that too. It's like you said before, we know we can't change other people. And sometimes it comes down to influence.
Yeah.
And then there's some things with people that you just, we as instructors or our students as employees or leaders, there's some things that you just aren't going to be able to influence in another person. That they may need that. They may need that therapeutic intervention to really work through.
Well, and that's the thing too, like you're not going to change that person, but you can 100% change your response to that person. And I think that, again, if you follow the crown backwards the other way, that means you've got to change your emotion, which means you have to reframe your thoughts about that particular scenario. And so really the crown's showing that it all goes one way, but it can also back up a little bit and go the reverse. So, you and I have always talked about too, all these hacks about how to give yourself a better life, how to give yourself a better work day. You get up, the 4 a.m. club, you work out, you eat this, you blah, 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 you take these supplements, but we don't ever spend enough time thinking about how we present ourselves in the world and how we present ourselves in the workplace as well. So I feel like this is kind of at the core of everything.
Yeah. You mentioned going backwards with it. So through the crown model, let's say that scenario where, that you laid out, someone got promoted and your thoughts are that they're not ready and that's affecting your feelings and your behavior towards them. What would it look like if someone were to kind of do that self-reflection and realize, oh, maybe my initial assessment wasn't totally accurate. Maybe they are ready, or maybe I need to change how I'm thinking and feeling about this. What would it look like if they moved backwards through the model to do that?
Well, I think it's funny because, you just said it perfectly. Like, this isn't my idea of that, but you're like, everyone's perception is their own, and we forget that other people have their own perception of things too. And although you might not think this person is particularly ready for this promotion, there may be some attributes underlying there that you don't see that makes them more ready than you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So like if my response or my behavior is that like every time this person comes around, I feel resentful towards them because I don't think they're in the right position, that means like I have to stop showing them that I feel that, which means I have to completely go back and reframe the emotions that I have and the thoughts that I have about them. I can sit there and honestly say, you know what, doing it backwards, maybe I don't know the full scope. I don't know what happens behind closed doors. I don't know about every element of work that they do and what they show their boss or their supervisor. And, I'm not privy to all of that. So giving somebody even the benefit of the doubt could be where the thought process starts, and saying maybe there's some attributes about them. Or we talk about this all the time. People that get promoted to leadership positions because they're good at what they do, not because they're good at leading people.
Mm-hmm.
Like that can be how you reframe that thought. And then you change that emotion to be, okay, I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to trust that my boss knows what they're doing. And then my response eventually is going to become to a place of acceptance. And then I can kind of change my behavior, have an open mindset into how that they're going to lead or however that might be. So yeah, going backwards and just identifying that my behavior comes from my response. My response comes from my emotions, and just hit it the other way. When you can't answer why you land at one of those points, that's where you're kind of blocked and you got to spend more time thinking.
And when it comes to rethinking it, I'll sometimes challenge people in workshops too to say, let's say you go through it, and even after some self-reflection and questioning it, you do come to a genuine good faith assessment that the person's not ready, in your opinion. Mm-hmm. Even then, I would ask someone, well, then what's going to be more helpful to that person, the people around them in the organization? Is it going to be more helpful to sandbag them because you don't think they're ready? Mm-hmm. Or is it going to be more helpful to do what you can to help them get ready or help them succeed despite what you see as a lack of readiness in their part? Sometimes it's, even when you still arrive at the same conclusion, you might need to rethink your thoughts around how you're going to act despite that conclusion or even because of that conclusion.
Yeah. Am I going to pull up a lawn chair and watch the fire? Or, get some s'mores out and watch what I think is going to burn down? Or do I sit there and, grab a hose and help make it a situation that we all can win from?
Yeah, it's oftentimes, I find that can be one of the big challenges in workshops, is helping people figure out when to, when is inaction a valid response?
Yeah.
Sometimes people will say, well, I've worked with this person, we've coached them, they're just not getting it. When do I kind of cut the line and they either sink or swim on their own? Right. Or, a problematic employee, and people might struggle with, when do I, like you mentioned before, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes the struggle is people will feel like someone else really doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm. And I think that can be valid at times, but I'm always cautious of, well, I don't ever want to encourage people to rush to that conclusion.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And I mean, even in that workshop that we just recently did, we were talking about, someone was expressing how they felt like no matter what they did, this particular employee was not understanding. And they're like, we've run through this 100 times. Why do I have to talk about this again? And then I kind of reframed it for them. And I was like, what if this person, their whole entire life, was micromanaged by somebody else and they lost the ability to think, on their own and have that really rational mindset of what do I do next here? They don't know that skill set. I don't think that most people are showing up and not doing what they need to do because they're making a choice. I think they don't have the skill set. So, with that particular person, it was more like, okay, if you weren't around and you believe that this person probably does know what they're doing, could you instead say, if you were going to make this judgment call, what would you do? And then give them the power back to make their own decisions. I think maybe as a kid, they were always told that whatever ideas they had were wrong, or they weren't understanding things correctly. And now they're gun shy to take any initiative. So, when you kind of put it that way and you're like, we think that, again, in the workplace that none of us have a background. We all have the same background. We all come from the same thing. Like all of our skills are different. And, putting yourself in a different perspective, I think helps a lot. And, maybe using the cognitive crown and the way you interact with them will help them have a breakthrough too, you know?
Yeah. Is that something, when you're working with students,
Yeah.
professionals, do you encourage them to share these types of tools with their team members?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really cool about what happens is, especially if we get somebody, multiple modules or multiple sessions, I see them again and they'll be like, "You taught me that thing, and I've really thought about that, and
Hmm.
I've kind of changed some things about my life," so that when they come into that class again, they build on that even more. But I think the more that they see that they have success in it and that it's been beneficial for them, they're definitely more apt to share it with their people at work. And you know what? I think that if you start doing that, people at work will notice something's different about them too, and maybe they ask, and that's a great opportunity to kind of share that information.
Yeah. It's all, it's infectious. I'm sure
It
there's a better
is.
word than infectious for it, but it's,
Uh,
it catches on, and it usually starts from the top.
yeah. And I
If
think
the
a lot
leader
of
of a
people,
team's, oh,
yeah,
please.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, just if the leader of the team is, um, exemplifying this behavior and using this tool, it's all the more likely, again, it's not going to win everyone over, but,
Yeah.
again, it can't hurt,
Mm-hmm.
if you're exemplifying and using the best leadership practices out there, then it can't hurt. It'll influence some of the people around you, maybe not every single
Yeah.
one. And
Yeah.
sometimes, we run into that fallacy in thinking of, well, it's not going to work for everybody, so why bother with it?
So why do it? Yeah.
It's like,
We're
well,
such
why
an
bother?
all
Because
or
it will
nothing
work with
culture.
some of them.
Yeah. We're such an all or nothing culture. It's unbelievable. You're either all in or you're all out. No one's willing
Hmm.
to be like half in the water, half out. It's so silly. But
And you mentioned too the benefits of repeat modules with people.
yeah.
And I think that's part of, our level up leadership program. Each level, you can take them individually. So, at a minimum, if you take that program, you're going to be with us for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And part of the thinking when I put that together was because stuff like this, if the cognitive crown's really going to help you, if you have to work on your, how you're thinking about things, how you're framing things, even your self-talk, how you're thinking and
Hmm.
talking to yourself, in 3 hours, we can put a tool in front of you, get you thinking about it,
Yeah.
but it's going to take a lot more than that to really get it to sink in and get you to see the benefit of applying it consistently. And
Yeah.
that's part of why even 6 weeks isn't quite enough, but it's, I've noticed with our students that, there may be a resistance to a concept in week 1, and then maybe in
Yes.
week 4 or 5, you're starting to see them have that light bulb moment of,
Yes.
oh, okay, it could be helpful. But it
Yes.
really takes that time. And a lot of people with training, they just want wham, bam, we've
Yeah.
got a problem. Let's run a workshop, problem solved.
Yeah.
Stuff
Fix
like
it
this,
immediately.
especially, it's slow. It's a slow process.
Well, it's also a choice you have to make every day, right? Like I have to make the choice that if I'm running into something, into a wall and I'm feeling a way about it, I have to sit down with my cognitive crown. I use that as a tool. I pull it out anytime I'm having a difficult time with an emotion that I'm harboring, or like sometimes, Heather, why am I acting this way right now? Like, let's get down to like the basis of it. But the more that you do it, it really just becomes a habit. And I mean, we talk
Hmm.
about habits all the time, especially in that first module. And I find that most times in all of our workshops, if somebody's having a conflict they want to talk about, we can take it always right back to this model and get a little bit more understanding of it. So, I mean, if you use this professionally, if you use this at home, I think, the more that you use it, the more it's going to become second nature to you. And you're really going to have a better idea of how you are around your peers.
Yeah. And it's so true. Like you said, you kind of put it on
Yeah.
when you walk through the door at work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think you and I have both found you kind of have to integrate it at home too.
Yes.
It's very,
Yeah.
you can't really separate them because, we're both parents. So
Yeah.
even sometimes it's, I feel like I had a breakthrough with my own leadership development when I realized that oh, wait a second, like
Yeah.
there's no work-life separation. Or you
No.
want work-life balance, obviously. I don't want people working 24 hours a day. I think 8
Right.
hours a day is a bit, if you ask me
Yeah.
personally.
I
But
agree.
that's the Bernie Sanders coming out at me. But
Yeah.
um it's that, if this is going to help you with the people you're leading at work and your relationships at work,
Yeah.
then It's going to help you at home with your relationships there, your relationships out in the community. And it really helped me once I realized like, oh no, I have to integrate all of it.
Yeah.
Like if it's going to help at work, it's going to help at home, and I can be practicing the skills at home, which is going to help me then practice it at work and vice versa. But that was a big breakthrough, especially with thinking, I mean, how could you practice positive thinking only at work? And why would you? Why would you do that?
And that's the thing too. Like, it's funny that, the thought process and then the last two sentences, the last two words we put there, at work or at home, it's just a location. That's all it is. Like, so what you practice at work is something that should just be practiced, in every avenue of your life. But I think if you're only clocking in a tool like that for 8 hours, you're not really emulating that tool to its fullest potential. It just has to be something that you adopt into your life. And speaking, having kids, you and I both, I mean, we're parenting young kids, and every day we just hope that they don't have a large therapy bill. That's our, mindset every single day. But
see, I've accepted they're going to be there.
Yeah. Well,
you do the best,
self-development.
You do the best job you can. There's still going to be stuff you weren't able to teach them that they're going to need help learning, and that's okay.
There's so many times, you get into any parenting book and it's going to say, your kid is acting like this because you reacted XYZ. And I think too, like, this was huge when I became a parent, that I was like, if I can understand how I'm fueling this child's tantrum, then I can understand how to slow that down too, So a lot of it's just self-reflection, but we don't take time to do those things. The same thing, I talk about this in our time management course too. We have all these great plans, we have all these great goals, but at the end of the work week, we're not sitting there going, so what worked? What didn't work? We just punch out. It's Friday, it's the weekend, and we forget about it. We go back and do the whole entire work week again. But, it's really important to spend some time and reflect, whether it's the way that you cognitively move around the world, or if it's, how you manage your goals or your time management or your productivity. I think that we just have to give more time to understand that and sit with it.
And speaking of time, Heather, you mentioned with this tool, you said it changed your life.
Yeah.
How long was that process? Was it instantaneous the first time you drew this out? So tell me about the change and how long it takes.
Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing it the first time and being like, okay. And I had this little pit in my stomach that was like, oh, I might have some work to do. And it was just kind of like this realization that took a little bit, digested a little bit. And then, I was implementing it in work a little bit. And then I was seeing really positive results. I mean, I would say it fully came to fruition. It like years, 2 years, 3 years for it to just become something I don't even think about anymore, but the first bit of it was something I really had to commit to. So I would say, I can confidently move through most situations and break it down this way without having to spend a lot of time thinking about it, because it's just second nature now. But I mean, you start testing it out in places. And I say about probably year 2, I was like, I think I'm using this in every area of my life now.
Yeah. So it's a good lesson for any employers or managers listening is that when you're talking about, affecting people's attitudes in the way they're thinking, it's not a fast process.
No,
it's not. And so if you're bringing in a company like Real Custom Training, we can help kickstart that. We can really educate people, inspire people, but then the organization has to do the work after our work is done, or in between working with us, of really pulling it through and recognizing, okay, this is not going to be an instantaneous process of affecting the way people are thinking and reframing things. And I feel like that's important, because nowadays, you spend 30 seconds on LinkedIn and there's lots of promises of, when I see promises of this will change your life, oftentimes when I look at it, there's an implication or even just an explicit statement that it's going to do it right away. Yeah. It's kind of like all you have to do is this. Yeah. All you have to do is get up at 5 a.m. every day. All you and it forgets, like you said, that there's different perspectives that, what works for one person isn't going to work for another, but people selling these ideas out there like to make you think they've got the one size fits all and that it's going to be quick and easy. And it's oftentimes like this, rather, simple in concept, but profoundly difficult to implement and make it stick.
Yeah. It's a commitment. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's, you know, the phrase that like it takes what, 3 weeks to build a habit. It just takes 3 weeks for you to accept it. I'm a firm
Hmm.
believer of that. You know, if I'm going to make my bed and I decide at week 3, I'm like, I guess this is just what I do now. It doesn't mean that I'm in love with it. It doesn't mean that I own it that way. I think that it takes much longer than that. And I think that a lot of times we give up on our habits too soon, you know, but, yeah,
Yeah. And I
absolutely.
think the habits too, it's oftentimes it's the thoughts behind it
Yeah,
that, that lead to the delay.
absolutely.
I know both of us have been like taking better care of our physical health in our
Hmm.
lives. And that whole 3 week thing, right?
Yeah.
I had a year under my belt of getting to the gym 3 days a week. And then in February this year, I was traveling to New York with a client twice a week and totally fell out of my routine. And it was amazing how quickly I fell right back into that mental trap of, I mean, it's sad how
It's
bad
alarming.
my self-talk, just like,
Yeah.
see, Andy, you lazy POS. Like
Yeah.
you went a year faking it, but you are not the type of person who gets to
Yeah.
the gym regularly. Cause look, you backslid. And,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
with things like this and all the work I've done on recognizing, oh, geez, look at the way I am talking to myself. And just
Yeah.
like we said initially, that's how I feel sometimes. And I have to remember, boy, my feelings are dead wrong about that.
Yeah.
And now I've
Yeah.
been back and I'm back in the routine. And I feel like every time you backslide, maybe you backslide a little bit less, but
Yes.
that's why I try to emphasize to people, like, it's going to take time, and all the rules out there about how long it should take and things like that. It's kind of out the window. It's really
Yeah.
about you and what's going to work with you. And chances are it's going to be a fairly slow, but progressive process. You got to celebrate the
Yeah.
progress as you're making it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think too, we talk about, maybe you had the goal to go to the gym, 3 days a week. And maybe because you were traveling, you got 1 week in. I mean, 1 day in instead of 3. It's such human nature to be like, well, I suck and I failed at that and I blew it. It's like, no, but you still went one more day than you were a year ago. Like
Yeah.
that is still progress. And we are so quick to bring ourselves down. It's unbelievable. It really, really is.
Yeah. And once you become aware of it, it becomes like I think the biggest thing you got to work on as
Yeah.
a leader. And even for your own, this is a half-baked thought that hit me earlier this morning. I don't mean to make light of addiction, but how with addiction, you can be high functioning.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I realized this morning, like, oh, I'm like a high functioning, low self-esteem person where
Yeah.
I get stuff done at the surface. People often are, when people do learn about any of my mental health struggles, they're,
Yeah.
sometimes surprised.
Yeah.
Because I don't present that way. They don't know what's going
Hmm.
on inside. They don't know that, yeah,
Right.
he got that presentation done and people loved it, but he just kicked the crap out of himself the
Yeah.
entire time, getting ready and afterwards. And,
Hmm.
so as, we were saying, you got to be a leader for yourself and for other people.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can be leading people the right way, but it's like, do yourself the good service too of working on how you're leading yourself too. And that's going to start internally with the way you think. And as your
Yeah.
model shows, that's going to feed your emotions and your behavior.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember being, I forget where I was, but somebody once saying to me, like, don't say that about yourself. Like if you were, if a friend came to you with the same situation you're in, would you give them the advice you just gave yourself? And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oof. Yeah, no, I wouldn't. So, we're just so easily self-deprecating all the time. And yeah, I think we have to believe in ourselves a little bit, but you believe in yourself more and more when you see the power that you can bring to your own life in terms of change and commitment to yourself. I at that point in my life was like, I have to get out of this mindset that I have that everyone else isn't doing what I need them to do, and realize that, whoa, maybe I wasn't leading the way they need me to lead. And
Mm-hmm.
I got to kind of step back a little bit. And it's humbling. But if I didn't have that realization, like I 1000% would not be as confident I am in the workplace now, or feel as solid with myself in my abilities, if I, let that kind of negative talk lead the way and didn't have this kind of process to help me through that.
Yeah. And I think it might be the ultimate fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Oh God, yeah.
Because if you go decades of thinking one way, it's so unnatural to start
Yeah.
trying to think another way. And it's like, you
Yeah.
just have to keep doing it. Just keep doing it, even if you're convinced you're lying to yourself, just push through that.
Yeah.
And it's consistent effort. That's really it.
Yeah.
So that, even that with the gym analogy, it's like, all right, I don't know, why'd you get hung up on 3 days a week? Why is that the definition of success? Maybe it's just,
Yeah.
I'm consistently putting effort into being healthier. And just, if you could put your head on the pillow at night knowing, hey, I tried and I'm going to try again tomorrow, it can make, your perceived failures a lot easier to deal with. Cause it's like, oh, I didn't hit the mark today, but I know I tried, and I know I'll try again tomorrow. And you end up kind of thinking about it even less, because you just know, I'm going to keep putting the consistent effort into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny too. Like, your goal was I'm going to go to the gym 3 days a week for, whatever. How long mentally did it take you to get to that decision? I bet so much more time than it took you to do 30 minutes at the gym. The thought process, getting yourself in the mental place to want that goal, is so different than just exercising the goal,
True. Yeah. Yeah. Again, the cognitive stuff.
Yeah. You got to get down to the core of that.
Let's say, Heather, let's say we've got a listener who, unfortunately, they have not had the pleasure of taking a workshop with one of us.
Yeah.
But they've heard this episode. This spoke to them. Any advice to them on what they could do after listening to this episode to start utilizing the model in their day-to-day life?
Yeah, I think just spending more time, I'm going to say, questioning yourself, not doubting yourself. Those are different, right? But asking yourself questions. Why am I acting like this? What's driving this? I think to take that little memento from this and start incorporating that into the day, like, even if you're not working the whole entire crown at this point, but even if you're kind of, when you're feeling a way that's unnatural for you, or a place you're uncomfortable sitting in, just asking themselves that question yourself, but don't doubt yourself.
I like that. Yeah. Question without doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. They say, another like therapy thing, try to be an observer, take that objective fly on the wall view of, oh, look at that. Like, look how angry that made me. That's interesting. Yes. Why? What's going on there? Why do I get so tense around my family? What exactly is, what's going on there?
Yes. Well, I mean, how many things do we, every single day, you have feelings like that, whether you're going home or whether you're showing up to work, or whether how many people I talk to that the first thought they have Monday through Friday is how much they hate their job, or how much they hate their boss. And like, they have to power through that every single day. We realize that, like, it really touches everything. All of this stuff does. So
that's the cognitive crown, everybody. Thank you to Heather for presenting it to us. We're going to make, we'll do some social media posts with this up too, Heather. So we'll put it into, we'll make a image people can grab and maybe print out, put on their desktop if they need to.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm gonna blindside you, Heather, with a new segment.
All right. Okay.
We're gonna do recce's. Do you know in Australia that instead of recommendations they say recce's?
I did know that.
And our podcast producer is from Australia.
Perfect.
So he's my authority. I don't Google anything about Australia. I just text him. He loves it. I'll say, is it true you guys say recce's in Australia? Sunglasses.
That's great.
So what are you reading? What are you watching? Doesn't have to be leadership related. Just what are you into these days that other people might want to check out?
What I'm into, I am so deep in the Happy Face Killer.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh my gosh. So I'm a super true crime junkie. Love this stuff. And it's about a serial killer. And the story is based on his daughter, who is out and about in life. And people are starting to learn that her dad is this prolific serial killer, and how she kind of floats through the world being associated with somebody like him.
Is this fiction or nonfiction?
It is based on a true story, but
is it based on the BTK guy's daughter?
Killer. Oh, no, the smiley face.
Well, I know that. So wait, is the smiley face killer a real?
Yes.
That's pulled out of history, but the daughter part is kind of.
Yes. So she just came out with a book not long ago, and I think it kind of like sparked it to become, this series now.
Okay.
So it's interesting because they're doing a lot of, and of course I love anything mind based. She's talking about in the show how she's never gone to therapy, and everyone is shocked that through everything you've gone through in life, you
Yeah,
know,
look
and
at
your
my
dad's
eyebrows
this,
shot
you've
right
never
up.
done this thing. So it's amazing that, like, you know, now she's in her 40s and all of these things about her past are popping up, and she's having a really hard time dealing and wrapping her head around, you know, who her father actually is and
Oh,
all the
okay.
thoughts and perceptions she had about them. So I'm loving that. Loving that.
Well, I know some of the folks in Level Up Leadership right now. I don't remember how it came up recently, but true crime podcast came up, and I'd
Yeah.
say almost everyone in the room was talking about how they also are like true crime junkies.
Yeah. I'm
So we'll have to
obsessed.
pass that on to them.
I podcast it, I listen to it, I watch it. You know, my poor husband, he's like, "Why do you do this?" And I'm like, "I find this relaxing somehow." I don't know what that says about me, but
Well, hey, if it works for you, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
yeah, yeah,
What
so
are you
true.
watching? What do you got? What shows you got going these days?
So I have that, and then oh God, what else am I watching?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say that
That
I had
was
assumed in my
that
head
was the show.
podcast, but it's a
You know, we're
show. Oh,
also
what's
doing we're doing Long Way Around. I think it's about Ewan McGregor and his best friend. They go on, it's a documentary series. They go on these crazy motorcycle trips, and they have, you know, support vehicles that follow them. And it's a travel show, but it's also about their friendship and stuff. But it's just it's a cool way to see the world through their eyes, which is very cool. So they're doing this season on bikes that are over 50 years old. So there's always like kind of a spin on that. Last
yeah?
time they rode from Chile all the way to Alaska on only electric bikes. So you
Oh,
could
okay.
imagine what that went like. But that's a fun one too. It's really fun.
Is his friend rich like he is, or is this
He's
like
an actor.
oh, he's an okay? It's not like an
Yeah,
entourage
but
situation where like
not
Ewan
like
just brings his friend along for his
no,
life.
no, no. He was also an actor. I mean, not to Ewan McGregor status, but yeah, their friendship. I think they knew each other before they were both successful, and so that dynamic is really cool in their
Yeah.
friendship. Watching that kind of happen, yeah. So watching that, reading right now, I am on a reading hiatus. I have a book hangover, and it's been months.
What gave you the hangover? What book did you hit too hard?
Oh God, what was it last? I had done oh my gosh, it's gonna completely leave my brain. Oh, I did A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is not my style ever. I am
Oh
not a
yeah.
fantasy reader at all, not my jam. But I had so many people recommend it to me. So over Christmas break, I got into it. And then before I knew it, I read 6 of them or however many they are. And yeah, I'm kind of exhausted still.
Yes, I know what you mean. When I do a series like that, sometimes I
Yeah.
can't even get through them, or I'll try to like for my daughter's sake, because Haley read the Harry Potter books. So I was
Yes.
like, oh, I want to reread them so we can talk more about them. And I got to the 5th one, and I just get that, like, not that they're bad, but I'm just like, this is too much of the same
Yes.
thing. It's like eating the
Yes.
same food all day, every day in a way. And
Yes.
I just had to put
Yes.
it down, and I haven't gone back. But
Well,
yeah, I
then
think
I
Emily
know
read that book you mentioned.
it was a great series, right? But I realized that I was being the most unproductive human on the planet because all I wanted to do was read. So then I
Yeah.
was like, you know what? I'll do the audio version of it. And then I was like, that is a 25-hour audiobook. That is, but there's 6 of them, you know? So it was like, yeah, I need to find other ways to be productive. So I'm watching more TV now. I go through those spurts where I watch more TV, I read more books, I do more craft or hobbies or whatever. And I just kind of ebb and flow the whole way through like that.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's like you know, I always say whatever works for you.
Yep.
Whatever makes you
Yep.
feel better and helps you unplug, or sometimes not unplug. Maybe there's stuff people, you like to actively watch and really think about, kind of
Yep.
study it, or just the real passive, like,
Mhm.
yeah, like Harry Potter,
Yeah.
it's just fun to read. I'm not necessarily pulling a ton of leadership lessons out of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's part of it too. Like we had talked about on another conversation we had about like the diffused brain. You need sometimes to put your brain into a place where it just kind of gets to diffuse and doesn't always have to be on guard and learning information. You can just kind of let the mind wander a little bit. So that's kind of where I am with my shows and stuff. Is I'm in that stage or that gear, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's like if you got the reading hangover, so now you got the TV Pedialyte,
Yep. Yep.
Pedialyte and tater tots. That's always my recipe.
It's your go-to. I love
We
it.
Emily and I just finished Andor, which was really good.
Okay, I've heard that's very good.
Even if you don't like Star Wars, I think it
Yeah.
stands on its own, and it's quite different than the rest of Star Wars. But yeah, I
Yeah.
would recommend Andor to people. And
Okay.
the ironic thing is, it's the fascist characters in it.
Yeah.
At times, it's kind of what can be scary about them. At times, and maybe I should do an episode on it, but the fascist characters are all part of the bureaucracy of the evil empire. And
Okay.
so a lot of it is like meetings and committee meetings and stuff like that. And it's interesting to see where I'll turn to my wife and be like, you know, they're kind of doing textbut leadership stuff. Like that
Yes.
guy just demonstrated being open to feedback in a really good way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's for evil purposes, but it was a
yeah.
good reminder for me of like, oh yeah, you can kind of, let's not forget, you can do the right thing for the wrong reasons and
Oh,
be part of
100%.
why bad people sometimes are so successful is because they are really effective in the way they lead and get things done.
Yeah.
So again,
And
it
it's
comes
just not
back to
always for
what's
the
your
better.
intent? You know, why are you doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a whole other module, right?
Oh yeah.
yeah.
All right.
So
Well,
cool. Have
Heather,
you
I
seen
really,
it?
oh no,
Oh,
please.
go
Yeah.
ahead. Have you seen Severance? Did we talk about this?
So Severance is one of those shows that from what I've learned about it, I
Yeah.
think I will absolutely love it. But
Yeah.
Apple TV is the last streaming service that has not gotten us to sign up yet. Every other one,
Gotcha.
I have Peacock. I don't know why. I have Paramount Plus. I don't know why. It's always because at some point, my wife and I wanted to watch something that we could only get there, or the kids
Yeah.
somehow pulled us in. But Apple TV hasn't snared us yet, even though,
Man.
yeah, I hear Severance is great. Slow Horses, I know I would love. I read
Yeah.
the book and loved it.
Silo was excellent. That's another
That's
one that was really great.
Rebecca Ferguson, right? From
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, like okay.
That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
amazing. Yeah. I
And a
feel
lot of
like
people
with
bring up
Apple
Ted
TV,
Lasso
well, yeah. I mean, if we
in
all just
workshops.
operated like Ted Lasso, the world would be fine. Hands
Yeah, see, I
down.
got to check that
We'd be
out.
fine. They're doing a last season. They was supposed to be the previous season, but they added more onto it. So that'll be back. But Apple TV, it's like more movie quality. I don't know. All the shows just seem elevated a bit.
I feel like they are kind of at that HBO level of prestige. You know
Yes,
how
yes, I would say that's similar.
in its golden age, it was HBO was head and shoulders
Yeah.
above everybody, and now they diluted. I feel like they diluted their product, adding all the
Yeah.
you know, they went to Max, they dropped HBO from the name because
Yeah.
they integrated all the Discovery Channel stuff, which
Yeah.
looks like a lot of it looks like garbage to me. So I feel
Yeah.
like you've got gold next to garbage now through that brand, but
Yeah.
Apple Plus is really, I don't hear much about garbage on Apple Plus.
It's real good. It's real good. Yeah,
Well,
we spend more time there than anywhere else right now.
keep in mind, Heather, I really would like Real Custom Training start offering some workshops where we take you know, almost like a rewatch kind of thing.
I like
You know,
it.
where we'll people will sign up and we'll say, all right, week 1, we're all going to watch these 3 episodes of Ted Lasso and get together and talk about the leadership lessons and things like. I think people
that's
would
perfect.
yeah, because again, relevant, engaging, actionable, and lasting. TV is relevant to people, and they might not always think of, you know, what workplace lessons can be pulled from it. But
yeah,
if it's a show about people dealing with other people, which pretty much every show ever is
every
about,
show is.
we'll find a way to help you learn from it.
Maybe they'll find themselves in a character if they can't see themselves for who they are, right? They'll kind of,
Oh, there you
I
go.
do that, you know?
Yeah. Like which Office character would you be?
Oh, that's a very big question, Andy. Which Office character would I be? I want to say Jim.
Yeah,
I want to say Jim.
I can see some
who would I
Jim.
be in your eyes?
You know who immediately comes to mind is Jim's girlfriend before Pam that he worked with. Was it Karen? Rashida Jones's character?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because she's super smart, super self-assured, confident. Yeah, I kind of.
Yeah, I could see that.
I see a lot of her in you.
Yeah. All right.
But then you got to think, what would your enemy say? Who would your enemy say you're like?
Oh God. Oh, Angela.
Yeah. We can all be like Angela. I've been told I'm like Andy Bernard. That was or just like Ed Helms in general, which it was one of those things where I knew they were trying to hurt my feelings and they did. Where I was like, oh, I could see that, and I hate Ed Helms. It's the ironic thing. I thought one of the biggest mistakes in The Office was making Ed Helms. They tried to make his character the heart of the show after Carell left.
Yeah.
I just find him and that character, I don't know, just grating. Just
see, I couldn't even get there. I think when that started to happen, I was out.
Oh, see, I
didn't finish all the way through.
like I said before, I'm always hesitant to cut the cord and give up on things and people.
Yeah.
So I hung in with The Office all the way to the end.
Yeah. Yeah. You stay a little too long sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yep. It's like if I've come this far, I'm going to just hang in.
Yeah. Yeah. Commit, right?
All right. So our reckies this week, happy face, smiley face
killer. Yep.
Happy face killer.
Killer.
Sounds like Ted Lasso's a recommendation.
Oh, Ted Lasso, just start there. Your life will just be happier. Guaranteed.
Definitely check out. I highly recommend Andor. There's some good leadership lessons in there.
Yeah. Severance. If you haven't done that yet, do that. And so maybe watch that first and then finish the night with an episode of Ted Lasso. At least you can go to bed happier. Than
a nice palate cleanser.
Yes, absolutely.
That is true. I mean, even in trauma recovery, I love a guy, Dr. Glenn Doyle is amazing on like a great, usually I would say maybe don't go to social media for this type of stuff, but he is so authentic and real. And one thing I love from him that influenced me is he'll say, like you do have to be careful about what media you're consuming. You know, if you're working on becoming more positive, reframing your inner monologue and stuff, then you definitely have to be a little sensitive to, am I taking in too much of, like for me, Heather, at one point, I like true crime. When I would listen to multiple true crime podcasts in a row, I would notice my anxiety spiking. Yeah,
I could see that.
And I wouldn't have said I was scared of them or anything, but it was like, once I noticed that, I thought, oh, I think it's, maybe I can still like true crime, but just space it out a little more. Like you said, maybe I needed to watch Ted Lasso after each one.
Well, yeah, and it's the anxiety of knowing if everything works out okay, like the resolve, I guess I can kind of get addicted to too when I listen to true crime. Like I'm addicted to just seeing it through the end.
Oh, kind of the puzzle piece, seeing the whole puzzle come together. Yeah, that's interesting.
That's it,
And then conversely, Dr. Doyle also says, though, lean into the stuff that really, if you've got a show that means a lot to you, people, especially, we love to be like, oh, but that's for kids, oh, Harry Potter's for kids, that's for kids, blah, blah, blah. And he makes the point of like, no, if it really speaks to you, there's a reason for it. And you should lean into that and really own it and allow it to influence you in other areas of your life.
Absolutely. And I mean, even like, especially with everything going on with, politics the last 4 months, on social media, it's videos. And I was noticing about myself that when I get in a video, I will watch it to the end, even if it's more than I want to digest. So I started saying, okay, I'm not going to watch videos. I'm only going to read about politics because it is easier for me to be like, all right, that's enough. Swipe it away. Whereas I know as a person, I'm going to be more committed to watching the full video. So it's like for my mental health, I'm not going to watch anything. I'm only going to read the news instead. And I could turn it off much easier. Yeah.
So you gotta stay off TikTok.
Yeah, no, so I don't go there because I know it's going to be very dangerous for me.
Yeah, it's all video. Even I dabble with it, and you can just feel the neural pathways getting shaped in your head, and it's like, okay, I'm going to step away from TikTok. This is
well, and then I'll say to myself too, like when I'm sitting there just doom scrolling, I'll say, what are you going to find that's going to make you feel satisfied enough to stop? And the answer is always, I have no freaking idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I stop, when I start questioning myself that way. It's like, what is it that you're looking for? But man, TikTok's changed everything.
What are you working on in life? The more you get into that leadership mindset, it's like, what goals am I after? And is this activity helping? And if it's not helping, is it hurting? Because like you said, diffuse time, we all need times where we're not actively pursuing something. And it's like, I'm just watching baseball because I like it. I'm not thinking about how that athlete is a model of growth mindset or the stuff I tend to think about too much. It's like, sometimes it doesn't need to be helping. In fact, in not helping, it kind of is helping.
Yeah. Well, there's so many times that in my work too, I come up with my best creative ideas in places where, I'm doing the dishes. You need to give ourselves more of that,
What do you go write them down or do you remember them?
I immediately write them down and then full spiral work into it until I'm exhausted.
Yep.
That's how I roll.
So then the dishes stack up, but it's worth it.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you got to act when inspiration strikes.
Yep.
All right, well, those are our reckies for the week. And we'll do, I think anytime we get together, Heather, we'll do some recce's.
I love that.
And you're a great guest, Heather, because I gave you very little heads up on some of these questions and topics. So I just I like people to know that.
It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, because you care about this stuff. You know, when you care about it, you can talk about it without too much prep.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Heather, for presenting the cognitive crown. I know it's been really helpful to you. It's been helpful to me, and it's been helpful to our students and clients at Real Custom Training. So I appreciate the time, and hopefully it'll be now through Better Workdays. It can help even more people who maybe we don't directly work with, but they'll check out the episode and have a good tool to take away.
Yes, I would love that.
All right. Well, thank you, Heather. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye, guys.